You're listening to the Health and Happiness Podcast with Travis Kemper and
Lauren Maxwell. Each episode, we share easy to implement strategies to improve your health, happiness, and overall quality of life. To achieve success, you first need to define it for yourself. Jack Hansen. So how's it going, Travis?
It's going great. I have big news for us.
What?
Well, we're over 1,500 views and downloads in our first 6 months of the podcast.
Woohoo! That's so exciting. Big thanks to everyone who has listened and downloaded and viewed our podcast. We really appreciate it so much.
Yes, and special thanks to all that have taken the extra minute to leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Every time we get a new review, we get a spike in downloads, so it really does mean the world to us.
So awesome. Yay, thank you guys. So what are we talking about today, Travis?
Well, Lauren, often people tell me that they want to be healthier, stronger, more successful. I want all of those things too, and I'm guessing that you do as well?
Of course, but I would assume that your goals are not the same as my goals.
What do you mean? I want success, strength, loving relationships, health, and you do too. So we have the same goals.
Well, yes, technically, but those goals are very abstract. For example, I highly doubt that your strength goals and my strength goals are even remotely similar.
Exactly. When people say I want to be successful in any category, it's quite a meaningless statement, honestly. You have to define those terms. For instance, I want to be stronger tomorrow than I am today in squats, and so does the mountain from the Game of Thrones. But our stronger tomorrow levels are extremely different because he's one of the strongest men in the world, and to my knowledge, I am not. So I have a squat goal of 300 for 8 reps this year, and his squat goal might be more like 700 for 8 reps.
Ooh, that's a lot. But yes.
He does outweigh me by another whole person, you know.
That's very true. Very true. Yeah. The problem with abstract statements like I want to be healthier or successful or stronger is that these are very abstract terms with no definable characteristics.
Yeah, and with definable characteristics you can't measure. There's no progression towards your goal because what the hell does stronger mean? And when do you achieve? You never know because your goal is just to be stronger. So this is one of the biggest reasons why so many people make a goal. Let's say our New Year's resolution, like on the first episode, you make a goal to eat healthier and work out more. You go to the gym for the first 3 weeks, and then I never see you again. This is one of the biggest reasons. You have no defined goals, so you're just going to the gym.
Yep. I feel like you just described like the first, 25 years of my life with trying to work out. I mean, I've shared my story a lot on this podcast, I feel like, but before it worked, this is the kind of thing that I did where I just feel like, I want to be healthier. I want to be more fit. I want to be whatever, stronger. And I would like be gung-ho about it and work out for like a week or two. Sometimes I even made it to like a month or 3. But eventually, again, without like goals or ways to track progress, you don't really feel like you're accomplishing anything. And like, then it just becomes like, what's the point? And then you quit. And it wasn't until I started making like actual goals after physical therapy school, when I learned that goals were really important, that I like actually had success with it.
Yeah. So there's a couple of places in our lives where we go from defined to completely undefined in life. One of those areas is graduation of college or high school, really, and then retirement from professional careers. Mm-hmm. And studies are rare, but articles and accounts are plentiful on post-graduation, post-retirement depression.
Yeah, this is not an uncommon experience whatsoever. I mean, if you just like Google this stuff, like blogs come up of people who have like gone through this. For example, I pulled this off of somebody's blog too, that had experienced post-graduation depression. She wrote, the first week at home felt great. By week 3, though, something changed. I had a pervasive feeling of loss, and with a knot in my stomach, I stopped eating regularly. Within 2 months, I was so depressed, and I had trouble getting out of bed in the morning. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't believe anyone would understand. What I also didn't know was that my post graduation emotional distress was not uncommon.
Yeah, I think most people have it. I've experienced it twice. Once from graduating undergrad and then realizing that everything that my teachers told me about how life was going to get like infinitely better after graduation
Ugh.
was completely BS because they had
Mhm.
no idea what after graduation actually looked like.
Yeah.
Um, and the other one after PT school, where I already knew what I was getting into when I signed up for work, and I had all these, I made plans, but what I didn't have was any long-term goals. So it was just like, I'm going to work. I'm going to work at that point 9 months a year, 9 to 10 months a year. But that was all my planning. I didn't
Mhm.
have like a long-term goal to strive for. I didn't really know what I wanted in the rest of my life. So I got depressed again. And it wasn't, honestly, it wasn't until I went on a 3-week vacation in Hawaii when you watched Sable for me that it really hit. Like, retirement is not a goal for me because 10 days into my 3-week vacation, I was like, oh God, I feel
What do
like
I
crap.
do?
Yeah. Yeah. Both Julia and I experienced it where I've shared this story a lot with people, but I just felt like crap. I didn't have any routine. I didn't have any goals. I didn't have any purpose while I was in Hawaii. It was like I was in this beautiful place and I was doing all these cool things, and we were hiking and we were swimming and we were snorkeling, surfing. We were doing everything, like all the super fun stuff. And with all of that, I was bored out of my mind and
Wow.
like in a mini depression. We looked to potentially end our vacation early and fly back and switch our flights. We
Wow.
didn't. We made it the whole time because we're, super tough.
You made it.
But so some of the reasons that we have these experiences, this is according to psychologists and people that experienced it and then got out, including us. Um, but again, there's not a whole lot of studies on it for whatever
Mhm.
reason, even though it's such a big thing. But some of the reasons are that you lose your friends and your social network. Most people's best socialness, that's definitely a good one,
Yeah.
is at their place of work. Or when you're in college, obviously, you're never going to experience that type of social network again.
Yeah. That's a huge
Um,
social network.
yeah, for Julia and I on that vacation, we lost our purpose, we lost our routine. Um, you can also lose your identity. A lot of people's identity is tied up in their work or in college, um, and you lose clarity. Like you lose
Mhm.
clarity on what you want out of life.
Yeah, totally. We found a psychologist who was kind of talking about specifically the post graduation depression, but can also relate to post retirement. But in specific to post graduation, she said that college can provide, like Travis was saying, like this cocoon of community, of friends and teachers and mentors that you're never really going to have again. Not in that sense anyway. Like you could get really lucky with work. Um, but graduating also symbolizes a leap into adult life, or like what we've been told adult life is for our whole lives, which is a huge transition. Um, and by the time a student graduates from college, they have spent the majority of their lives as students, and higher education students have attended school for close to 20, if not more than 20 years, and it has become a major part of their identity. And when people face an obstacle that threatens their identity, mental health may be compromised. And I definitely experienced this. I spent like 21 years of my life being a student. And I remember after I graduated from PT school, I literally said, like, I only know how to be a student. I like, this was all I've ever done. I mean, I worked, but also like it wasn't a professional career. So like I didn't know how to be a professional. I didn't know anything but like you study for exams and you take tests, and then you prepare to study for exams and you take tests, and like that was my whole life for, I mean, up until I was like 27. So there was
there's these constant goals, checkpoint, goal, checkpoint, goal,
yeah.
checkpoint, break.
Yeah, and you don't even have to make them for yourself, really. Like that school is structured that it's
Right.
just like, here's your goal. Like
Right.
here it is. Here's the short-term goals is pass the test. The long-term goal is graduate. Like I didn't even, it was so confusing to graduate, and like I didn't know what to do. I described it as I had been hurtling towards a cliff, and then graduation happened and I fell off and I hit the ground, and then I was like, how do I get out of here? Like, what do I do? It was terrifying. I just like didn't know how to survive. It only lasted a little while. I obviously figured out how to survive. But like while I was in it, it was like, I mean, I didn't know what I wanted to do in physical therapy. Like I hadn't decided what like special area I wanted to go into. Did I want to travel? Did I want to work with geriatric? Did I want to do pediatric? Like I had no idea. So,
and it's sometimes hard having all of those options. So I can't imagine. Right. And it's too many in physical therapy. Imagine a business major.
Yeah.
Like the array of stuff that you can do is so huge.
Yeah.
Coming out of something like a business school, that like, yeah, how do you choose one thing?
How do you choose one thing?
And then you get scared if you choose one thing, you get stuck in that one thing. Like I have a good friend that's in retail, that went in retail in right out of school. And he's still in retail, and he's wanted to get out of retail for years. I don't know how many years. I'm not going to put a number on it, but let's say at least 6. But he's kind of stuck because nobody else wants, this retail guy.
Oh, it's so hard.
Right. So WebMD has a page on post-college depression, and they mentioned that it's not an official diagnosis. And as we mentioned earlier, it's not studied, like hardly at all.
Yeah.
Tons of accounts, no studying.
You would think psychology, yeah.
Right. Yeah. If psychologists are listening, please start studying this, because it's kind of an important thing that happens to tons of people every year.
Yeah.
So they say, although it's not an official diagnosis, post-graduation depression is commonly used to describe the extreme sadness and impaired functioning that recent grads report after they leave behind the world they created in college. They have a bunch of symptoms. I'm going to go over with some of them. Some of them are kind of really sad. Like number 1 is you're uncomfortable with yourself or your life, and you don't know why. You're stuck or unmotivated without knowing how to move forward or what to do or what you want to do. You're unworthy, incapable, or feel as if you've disappointed yourself, your family, or your friends, which we kind of talked about that in the negative self-talk episode.
Yeah.
You're isolated and unsupported, possibly in a new job, city, or educational program. You're lonely for your friends and family. You're angry at yourself. Your emotions are like a roller coaster, extreme highs, extreme lows. You're exhausted and overwhelmed. All of this sounds like mental health nightmare to me.
Not fun.
Yeah. So Lauren, they give us some tips. You want to go over those?
Sure. Yeah. So some tips to help, which is really the bread and butter of our podcast, is how do we get over this? How do we help ourselves? First and foremost, plan for it. Plan if you're in the middle of this transition, or like before you're about to graduate or you're about to retire. Don't just like assume it's going to be fine once you're graduated or retired. Start planning now for this transition, because if you're anything like me and you feel like you fell off a cliff, it's really hard to claw your way out once you got there. So start by building healthy habits. Eat nutritious food, get enough sleep, and exercise in a way that's good for your body. Stay connected to your friends and family. Reach out for emotional support from those who care about you. Make new connections. Friendships can shift with time and distance and the changes that adulthood brings. So start reaching to find new people in this new phase of life. I think, Travis, you were sharing a story earlier about how your college friends and your friends of now are not the same types of friends.
No, not at all. I mean, some of my college friends are moving towards the same types of friends that I currently seek out. But like we talked about in a friendship episode, it's totally different. Like you leave college and those are your college friends. And sometimes when I get together with them, and most of the time when I get together with them, you kind of revert back to that person you used to be. But I'm totally not that person in my everyday life
Yeah.
anymore. Like for instance, in college, I never would have meditated. I didn't read. Yeah, I know that sounds weird to say, but you know how perfect of a student I was.
So perfect.
Like one of the only things I still do that I did in college is exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And that's mostly because that's the only way I can get through things that are mentally tough for me. And
Yeah.
college was like the toughest thing that I've ever done, not because
Yeah.
it was actually hard for me. It was just mentally hard to sit there for 4 to 8 years.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, your friends change. You need to look for friends that are the same, because here's the thing. Once you retire, if your friendship network is all in your workplace, or you're graduating college and your college workplace or your college life, that's all your friends, they're not coming with you, most likely, to wherever you're going.
Yeah, it's a lucky person who can take a college friend and kind of move forward with them, because it takes, I mean, like, you evolve as a person. You like go through hopefully go through like a metamorphosis in a new phase of life, and you transform, you change. And it's hard to change with people and still like the person that they are and find that connection, like that's a hard transformation in a friendship. If you can cross it, you're lucky. But I feel like that's rare.
Yeah, well, they're changing too.
Right.
Hopefully for the better as well.
Yeah.
And hopefully you're changing for the better, but your betters might be completely different.
Right, exactly. You might not want the same things and like the same things as you transform. So anyway, there's that. Another thing we can do is engage in things that are meaningful to you. You can, whatever that is, whatever brings you joy, just do more of that. I feel like we
like
say
our hobbies episode.
Yeah, I feel like we say that
a lot of
this.
Well, I feel like the list of things is just like the list of episodes that we've done.
Yeah, check out our previous episodes.
It's like friendship. Mindfulness is about to be the next one you're going to say. Engage in things that are meaningful to you. That's your purpose, your hobbies, that type of thing. Set achievable goals. That was episode number 1.
You need a tip for getting through this? Check out our podcast. We got you.
So post-retirement depression, again, not a lot of research, tons of examples. And it's very, very similar. You wouldn't expect retirement and graduation to have the same struggles, but a lot of times they do.
Big transitions.
So why does this happen? Again, identity. Person's sense of self is tied up strongly to what they do for a living. Their routine is all tied up to what they do for a living. The dynamics change at home. If you weren't home, period, you were at work 40 to 60 hours a week on average. Now you're home. Well, if your spouse has been home, maybe they retired a couple months before you. Now you're at home together and you've never spent 24/7 with each other. And this was a huge stressor during the lockdowns of the pandemic for people, because you got thrown into that in an instance and you didn't really have even a chance to plan if you were smart enough to plan.
Yeah.
You didn't have a chance to plan to be home all the time.
Yeah.
Another one is retirement might be seen as a reminder of the fact that you're aging, which we talked about aging too. Go listen to that episode if this is one that's scary for you. But a lot of people associate retirement and death and sickness and disability. together, which is sad.
Which is really sad. And
It's really
again,
sad.
check out our episode on aging so you don't need to feel so afraid of aging. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. So a psychiatrist said that, and one of the things that we read, psychiatrist said that during the phase of going from a lot of structure to almost no structure, working to retirement, men can exhibit the same signs as someone who is overworked, which is interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So how do you cope with this, Lauren?
How do you cope? The key is to stay engaged. And again, like as long as that means like whatever you're doing, as long as it means something to you personally and keeps you coming back for more, it's a good thing to do. And it's a plus if you choose a social activity, because as we've talked about before, loneliness is a big thing. And research suggests that social engagement is as important to your health as exercise and a healthy diet.
All right.
But also, you should stay active. Do things to keep your mind and body active, such as taking a class, participating in sports, doing volunteer work, or even taking a part-time job or doing a different career. Like maybe there's something you've always wanted to do. You can go do that.
I had a coworker once upon a time when I was selling cars, when I dropped out of college. He was a super nice guy, and his dream was to retire and become a greeter at Walmart just because he loved saying hi to new people.
That is awesome. That's the perfect example.
Yeah. That was his dream. So he was going to become a part-time Walmart greeter.
Oh, that's so great. Love it. Yeah. And again, like we've already mentioned before, plan for retirement before you retire. Don't just like drop off that cliff. Plan for it, make a plan. It'll make the transition easier. Strengthen social and family ties. Visit your kids or offer to babysit your grandkids. Find a new sense of purpose. Maybe you can volunteer somewhere work related to your former career, or maybe there's something you've always wanted to try. Find a new way to provide meaning to your life, which will restore your sense of purpose that you once found through work. Fulfill your dreams. Go play that music instrument that you've wanted to play or learn or travel. If you've always said, I wish I had the time, now is the time, but also don't say that. Do it now. Wherever you are in your life, just do it now. But especially if you're retired, you have the freedom and you're still young enough for it. You have plenty of years left to live. If you're like retiring at 65, you're still young enough. Go for it. Do it. Develop a schedule. When you are used to planning your entire day around your job, it can be really tough to have a totally unstructured day. Instead, set up a schedule for yourself, creating set times when you will do work around the house, or when you'll exercise, or when you go see your kids, or talk to your grandkids, doing volunteer work, play your instrument, like schedule your day.
And always have defined goals. We talked a lot about goals in our first episode, and how good they are for us and how to set them and all of that. In the research that we used in that episode, goals are the way you can turn your values and dreams into reality. Success doesn't just happen. It comes with thinking, planning, and pursuing things that are important to us. And lots of scientific research shows that setting and working towards goals contributes to happiness and success in various ways, including being a source of interest, engagement, or pleasure, giving us a sense of meaning and purpose, bringing a sense of accomplishment when we achieve what we set out to do, with milestones along the way, preferably. Mm-hmm. This also builds your confidence and belief in what you can do in the future. Helps us focus our attention, and progress makes us feel happier and more satisfied, which motivates us to work towards our goals. It's a positive feedback loop, Lauren.
It's a positive feedback loop. That sounds like a win-win, right?
Sounds like a win-win to me for all of society.
Agreed. So what are we going to make our challenge for this week?
Define success in one area that you would like to improve, but you have not set goals in. If you need help with goal setting, go back and listen to episode 1.
We got you. If you need help with any of this, we pretty much got you already.
Yeah, whichever one struck a nerve, there's an episode for that. Well, this was fun.
This was fun.
Bye, everybody. Thanks again for listening. Keep sharing.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode and are getting benefits from our content.
If your life is improving in part due to the information in this podcast, we would greatly appreciate you sharing the episode with your family and friends on social media and leaving us a review so we can continue to reach more people and improve the health and happiness of the community at large.
Thanks again, and we will see you next week for another episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast.